All right, so welcome back, everyone. Dr. Sears back again with a lecture for MIET 392 Underground Mining here at Bluefield State University. Today, we are going to briefly introduce the topic of ventilation. So in the Mining Engineering Technology program here at Bluefield State, we have two ventilation courses in the course curriculum, and ventilation is very important. So we are not going to really dwell on this topic at all, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to introduce it. We're going to lay a foundation for what we'll be completing in those two courses, and basically just go over some general terminology and the ventilation plan sort of process that's contained in the MSHA ventilation handbook. Okay? With that, let's jump right in, and let me explain that the handbook really provides guidelines for the approval of ventilation plans for MSHA personnel. Okay, so a lot of the handbook talks about the plans, where this stuff is in the Mine Act, and then of course the Minor Act as well, and then it discusses plan approvals and the process for that, and how to track those if you're, like I said, for MSHA personnel. Okay, but this could be, beneficial to anyone that's submitting plans, right? To know what the process is, and of course, they talk about, the purpose, the authority and responsibility. This is for, like I said, for at MSHA, right? So this is geared toward MSHA personnel. The submittals and what mapping is required. Okay, there's procedures, tracking, and then of course a bunch of stuff to do with diesel powered equipment, and then additional information. So let's look into why we have ventilation plans and what the requirements are for those, and go from there. So the ventilation plan establishes minimum ventilation requirements to protect persons from hazardous conditions specific to the mine. So that's a very important part of this. Each mine's ventilation plan is different. Okay, there are some, like minimum requirements. For example, 3,000 at the face for, at a room and pillar section, right? Or something like that. There are certain like minimum standards, but a lot of mines, because of specific conditions, need additional ventilation or something like that. So it's mine specific, right? Most of this is specific to coal. So when you look through the authority section here, obviously Mine Safety and Health Act 1977, right? And then amended by the Minor Act 2006. So, that covers kind of all mines. 578520 requires that a written plan with specific content be developed for each underground metal non-metal mine. So metal non-metal is covered by 30 CFR 578520. Okay. And then the plan is submitted to the district manager for review. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but just like for the roof control plans, they go to the district manager. Additional sections of 30 CFR provide for submissions and approval for underground coal mines that are designed to control methane and dust. Okay. Another section specifies the minimum information that must be included in a ventilation plan, and specifies that additional information may be required to suit the conditions of the mine, so mine specific. And then another section lists information on the operator that they must include on the maps that are submitted, right? So the map has to show certain information that is critical to the plan, right, and the approval process. So there are multiple sections that discuss the ventilation map and what it must contain. And so, like I said, mostly specific to coal, because you see metal, non-metal is really only under one of these sections, and coal has multiple sections and multiple recording requirements, that sort of thing. Like I said, plans approved by the district manager, just like roof control plans, only the district manager or his or her designee has the responsibility and authority to approve a ventilation plan. And like I said, they're stringent, significantly more stringent for coal, or at least it's in more sections, okay? But the plan requirements are more stringent for coal. Plan submittals, so for coal mines and metal, non-metal mines, those are the two different sections. Coal mine ventilation plan has to be reviewed every 6 months, okay, by an authorized representative of the secretary. I assume that's Secretary of Labor, but anyways, got to be reviewed every 6 months. For underground coal, you have the type of intentional changes in the ventilation system that require written approval by the district manager before implementation. Okay, so let's listen to a couple of 75-370D, and then changes to information where district manager approval is required before implementation, 371. Then there's also a PIB, Program Information Bulletin, P1013, that provides examples of intentional changes that MSHA requires prior approval for. Okay. The mapping requirements for underground metal, non-metal, they're in section 578520, is that the same section? And then underground coal ventilation requirements in multiple sections of 75-372. And then in addition to the information requirements, the map also has to depict and explain plan contents that are required in 371 as well, such as the bleeder system, evaluation details, that sort of thing. So, moving on, Chapter 5 deals with diesel-powered equipment. So ventilation plan, approval in coal mines where you have diesel equipment whatsoever is in, Section A here, but then they also have, more information on what's required for multiple units of diesel-powered equipment, approval of reduced minimum ventilating air quantities, okay, approval of higher action levels, and corrective action in response to sampling results above the action level under 70-1900C. I'm not sure exactly what that is exactly for what the action level is for that, but what you see here is one, you can get approval for reduced minimums, approval for higher action levels. This goes for roof control plans too, okay? I've always said, anytime someone has said, you can't do that, when it comes to, like I said, roof control plans or ventilation plans, they say, you can't do that. My response to them always is that that's not necessarily true. You can get approval for a number of things by the district manager, okay? You have to submit, enough information and enough, evidence, that what you're doing will meet a standard. You can't just, show up and say things necessarily, but if you provide evidence, it is possible to get approval for lots of things. Okay, so just throwing that out there. There are, methods to that, and the sections of the law of the code where those are listed as well. And the appendix has got some additional items that may need addressed. Information, the ventilation plan, including any related plans, mine map, including escapeways. For like existing mines, right? Like what's your current plan, your methane liberation history, ignition history, any ventilation citations, petitions for modification. So that is one of the mechanisms for getting approval for non-standard or meeting other criteria or requirements or something like that. That's a petition for modification. There are some other ways as well, but that's something more for the health and safety law class. This is sort of gearing us up for ventilation. So comments from the operator, comments from respective miners, escape, evacuation plan, dust samples, that sort of thing. There's also a subcategory right here at the bottom, gassy metal, non-metal mines. They do exist. Trona, for example, is typically classified as a gassy, non-metal mine, and they do have provisions for those mines that are more similar to coal. When it comes to the plan itself, revisions, reviews, that sort of thing. And so it does exist. It's down there. And so with that, I'm going to close it out here and just say that this handbook is out there in the future when you are doing ventilation plans. If that's something that you're doing, know that it's out there and that it gives you insight into the ventilation approval process at the federal level. Individual states can be different, but yeah, the federal level, this gives you an idea of what you're working with. So with that, we will see you next time.